Hello guys, you're welcome to another tutorial on this channel. If you are new here, thank you for stopping by, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for coming back. In this video, I'll be showing us the process of making this stylish dress with side gathers. This tutorial is simple and easy to follow, so if you love seeing tutorials like this, why not keep watching and let's get into the video. To make this dress, you'll be needing about 3 to 4 yards of any fabric of choice depending on the body size. Here I have an African print fabric and it is 3 yards. I'll be drafting on a pattern paper before transferring to my fabric, and the first thing I'll do is draw a straight line which will serve as the starting or the shoulder line. Then from the shoulder line I'll take my vertical measurement. First is my shoulder to my bust line 9.5, to under bust 13, to the waistline 16, to my hip 25, and to my desired dress length 35 inches. Then I will draw straight lines across each point. Next is to label the lines. This is the bust line, under bust, waistline, hip line, and the full length. On the starting line, I will measure the neckline. The width is 3 inches. I will measure the neck depth for now. I will also mark half of my shoulder measurement, which is 7.5, then come down from that point by 1 inch and connect the point back to the neck width this way. From that shoulder slope, I will measure my armhole depth. Go ahead and measure your armhole depth and connect the point this way. Now this is the chest line. The next thing we want to do is to create the armhole curve. To get your armhole curve, you place your tape on the chest line, then you mark quarter of your bust circumference, and on the armhole line you get the midpoint. From that midpoint you go in by half of an inch, then you connect the point together, and there you will have your armhole curve. Now on the bust line, we are going to mark half of our nipple to nipple point. Mine is 3.5 inches. I'll mark it on the under bust line as well as the waistline, then connect the point. And from the waistline, I will come down by 4 inches. That is where I want my dart to stop. You can extend yours to the hip line. Next is to take in the dart. For my dart, I'll be using 1.5 inches. I'll mark half inch towards the center and 1 inch towards the side, and I'll mark the same thing on the waistline, then connect the point. From the bust line, I will come down by 1 inch, then connect the point to each of the dart leg with a curve. Now let's mark the depth of our neckline. From the shoulder, come down by whatever measurement you want. Depends on how deep you want your neckline. For me, I'm using 7 inches. Then on that line, I will measure half of my nipple to nipple point and connect the point back to the bust line. Next is to tighten the overbust. To tighten the overbust, I'll be using 1 inch. That's half inch on both sides of the straight line. Then I will connect each point to the bust line. The next thing to do is to mark the round measurement. I already measured my bust circumference, so I'll move to the waistline and mark quarter of my waist circumference, and also replace the dart measurement. On the hip line, I will mark quarter of my hip circumference. Then at the hem, I will add half inch to what I mark at the hip line. You can as well use the same measurement you use on the hip line, okay? I will replace the 1 inch for the overbust dart. Then create a new curve, which will be the new armhole. So this is no longer necessary. And this part as well. The next thing we want to do is to work on the side gathers. So from the center here, from where my dart stopped, I will mark 2.5 inches. So when I open that up, I will have 5 inches. So if you marked 2 inches, that means you will have 4. And if you mark 3 inches, that means you will have 6. Whatever measurements you are going to use should depend on how wide you want the center, okay? And from the waistline, I'll come down by 1 inch, then connect the point this way. For the amount of fabric that will be gathered here, we'll be using slash and spread method to get that. So I will divide this into parts and it will be 1.5 inches apart. The last thing to do here before cutting this pattern out is to measure the side dart. So from the bust line, I will come down by 1 inch. Now the bust or the side dart is the difference between your front waistline and your back waistline, and mine is 1 inch. So guys, this is all for the drafting of the front pattern. I will cut it out now. I will open up the side dart and close it back this way. I will number this part so it won't get mixed up after slashing, then set it aside to work on the back pattern. For the back pattern, I added extra 1 inch zipper allowance and I already draw my shoulder line. So from there, I'll retake my vertical lines, my bust point which is 9.5. Here we don't need the shoulder to the under bust. I will just measure my waist. My back waist is 1 inch shorter than my front waist, so I marked 15 instead of 16 inches, and this will affect the hip line and the full length. It will be 1 inch shorter than the front. But once we close the bust dart, which I already did, the side will be equal. The next thing we want to do is to mark the neckline as well as half of our shoulder measurements, then come down from that point by 1 inch to slope the shoulder. And from the shoulder point, go ahead and mark your armhole depth, then connect the points. Now let's create the armhole curve. On the chest line, you mark the quarter of your bust circumference just like you did the front. Then get the midpoint on the armhole line, but this time we need not go in by half of an inch, we'll just connect this point. The next thing we want to do is to mark half of our nipple to nipple point on the bust line as well as the waistline. Then from the waistline, I will come down by 4 inches, that is where my dart stops. Then I will connect the 3 points together. Then on the waistline, I will take in the dart. The width is 1 inch, that's ½ inch on both sides of the straight line. Then I will connect the points this way to create the dart. The next thing to do is to measure the neck depth. From the shoulder line, I'll come down by 7 inches. That's the same measurement I used for the front neck depth. And on that line, I'll remark the half of my nipple to nipple point, 3.5 inches, then connect the point. Now let's take the round measurement. I already measured my bust circumference, so I'll move to the waistline and mark quarter of my waist circumference, then replace the 1 inch dart measurement. On the hip line, I will also mark quarter of my hip circumference, then at the hem, I will add ½ inch to what I mark on the hip line, then connect the points. At the waist side of the zipper allowance, I'll take out ½ of an inch, then connect the point this way. This is to eliminate the zipper bulge. For the side gathers, I will mark 2.5 inches where my dart stopped, just like I did the front. I'll mark it all the way to the hem, then connect the point. And at this side of the waist, I will come down by 1 inch and also connect the point. Now for this space, I won't divide it into parts like I did the front. I will be using only that front pattern to cut out the side gathers for the back and the front. And this is all for the drafting of the back pattern. I will cut it out now. Here we have the side back, and here is the center back. And this is the pattern we'll be using to cut out the side gathers. The next thing to do is to transfer each of these patterns to the fabric. For the center front, I added half-inch sewing allowance, but at the hem, I added extra 3 inches to the initial length because I feel that length will be too short, plus extra half-inch hem allowance, making it 3.5 inches. For the side front, I also added half-inch sewing allowance, but at the side, I added 1.5 inches. For the back pattern, I added all allowances like I did the front, but nothing will be added to the zipper side because we already added the allowance while drafting. After cutting out the main fabric, I also cut out lining pieces. Now for this center back, the lining is half-inch shorter at the hem, and this is because I want to pull in my fabric. The next thing to do is to start stitching. Now the right side of each piece will touch each other, and I'll be stitching with half-inch allowance. For the front panel, I also cut out lining same way I cut out the fabric. Now you can decide to pad your bustier or iron interfacing to the main fabric or the lining. It's all fine. To stitch, I will place the side front on the center front this way, and I'll be stitching using the allowance I left for it. I'll stitch the other side as well as the lining pieces same way. Here is the back panel after stitching. I also stitched the lining pieces same way. For the front piece, after joining the bustier, I opened up the seam and ironed it flat, and I did the same with the lining. The next thing to do is to cut out the V shape at the neckline. I already folded my front piece, so at the center I'll come down by 3 inches, that's the depth. Then I'll mark half of an inch here, then cut it out. This is what it looks like. I have cut out the lining same way, and this is what I have. The next thing to do is to turn the neckline with lining, but before then we are going to attach the cape and the sleeve. For the cape, the length will be what you have here minus the sewing allowance. I have 6.5, but I'll cut out 6 inches. The height will be 3 inches, and after turning in the neckline, I will have 2.5. For the cape, I have my fabric unfold, and the height is 3 inches, while the length is 6.5. I'll be stitching with about 0.2 on both sides, so after stitching, I will have 6 inches. I will go over to the sewing machine now to do that. After stitching, I turned it to the right side, and this is what I have. To stitch, the open part of the cape will be attached to the neckline, and I will stitch it down this way. After stitching the cape, this is what I have. The next thing to do is to cut out the sleeve. To get your sleeve length, you will need to double whatever measurement you came down by as your neck depth. Yeah, I came down by 7 inches. That means I'm cutting out 14 inches as my sleeve length. And when I cut out that 14 inches, I won't add any sewing allowance. My fabric is already on a fold of 2. I will fold it again so I can cut out the 2 sleeves. The height of my sleeve is 3.5 plus extra 1 inch sewing allowance, that's 4.5. Here I will go up by 1.5 and connect the point. You can cut out any sleeve of choice for your dress, okay? It doesn't have to be this sleeve. I will cut out extra 2 sleeves and that will serve as lining. I will go over to the sewing machine to stitch the top parts as well as the base. After stitching, I turn it to the right side and this is what I have. The next thing to do is to attach it to our dress. I will place the sleeve where the cape stops, still leaving out the half-inch sewing allowance, and pin it down. I will pin the second sleeve same way, then stitch it down. Afterwards, I'll place the lining on it right side facing, then stitch the armhole, the neckline. I will also stitch the side as well as the hem. After stitching, I made sure to notch the V part of the neckline before turning to the right side so it can relax well. The next thing to do is to attach the sleeves to the back. You will place the front piece on the back piece right side touching, then you set your sleeve this way. Make sure to leave that half-inch sewing allowance near the armhole before you stitch your sleeve, okay? Afterwards, you place the lining piece on it right side facing, then you stitch the neckline, armhole side, as well as the zipper side and the hem. After attaching the sleeve and using lining to turn the neckline, this is what I have. I also stitch the second piece the same way. The next thing to do is to fix the zipper. From the top of the neckline, I will come down by 16 inches. That is where my zipper will stop. And I will close the zipper allowance from the hem and back stitch where my zipper stops. After closing the zipper, I also went ahead to close the side using the sewing allowance I left for it. The next thing to do is to cut out the fabric for the side gathers. Remember I said we are using slash and spread method to cut out fabric for our side gathers. Now I will slash this. I will go ahead to place each of these on a fabric that is on a fold of 2. The distance between each of these is about 4 inches, but if you want your gathers fuller, you can do more than 4 inches, okay? That 3.5 inches that I added to the actual length, I added it here as well, so the length can be equal. I will go ahead now to cut this out. I'm sorry my camera could not capture all of the fabric, but just make sure you place your pattern well, okay, and then you cut it out. Now this is for one side of the gathers. I will fold another piece of fabric into 2 and cut out the same thing for the second side. And this is how it will be at the side. The top part will be gathered around the cuff this way, and the straight part will be this way. Here, the side of my dress is facing up, and I will just pin the notch part of the fabric to it this way. So you can either gather this, run a loose stitch around the top of the fabric and gather, or just split it around, anyone that is convenient for you. The straight part of the fabric will be stitched to the straight part of your dress. Make sure to extend about ½ inch of that fabric at the base, and that ½ inch will serve as the hem allowance. Then you do the same thing at the other side, and you will have something like this afterwards. So this is what I have when I was done attaching the gathers at the side. You can see how nice it looks. I also went ahead to stitch the hem of the gathers, and this is what I have. Now you can decide to attach button at the center of your dress or just leave it as it is. And with this, we've come to the end of this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. If you find this video helpful, please like and share. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, kindly subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one.